Last night, two boys took me into the forest, and the worst part is, I trusted one of them that if you had asked me a week ago, I would have told you I was in love. Not the kind of love people warn you about, the kind you defend even when it doesn't make sense. He wasn't always like this. That's what I keep telling myself. Or maybe he was, and I just chose not to see it. His name doesn't matter. What matters is how easily he made me feel like I was the only person in his world, and then how quickly that feeling started slipping away. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. First, it was the late replies. Then the missed calls. Then the way he'd read my messages and leave them unanswered like I didn't exist. When I asked him about it, he'd smile, pull me closer, and say I was overthinking. And I believed him. Every single time that I remember. One night I told him I felt like he was hiding something. He laughed. Not the warm kind of laugh, but the kind that makes you feel small for even asking. He said, "You don't trust me?" And just like that, the conversation turned into my fault. I ended up apologizing for questioning him. That's how it always went. Still, I stayed. Because every time I thought about leaving, he'd do something that pulled me back in. A late-night call. A random visit. The way he'd say my name like it meant something. It was enough to make me ignore everything else. Yesterday evening, he texted me out of nowhere. No explanation, just a simple message telling me to get ready. He said he wanted to take me somewhere special. I asked where, but he wouldn't say. Just told me to trust him. That word again. Trusted. I hesitated. Something about it felt off. The timing, the tone, the way he avoided answering simple questions. But I didn't want to start another argument. I didn't want to seem difficult. So I agreed. When I stepped outside, he was already there. But he wasn't alone. Two boys were standing near him. I had never seen them before. He introduced them casually, like it was nothing. Said they were friends. I tried to smile, but something inside me tightened. They didn't look at me the way normal people do. Their eyes lingered too long, like they were studying me instead of meeting me. I asked him quietly why they were coming with us. He shrugged it off, said it was just for a drive, nothing serious. I could have said no right there. I could have walked back inside and locked the door. But I didn't. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself he wouldn't put me in a bad situation. So I got in the car.at first. Everything felt normal enough. Music was playing, low conversations, occasional laughter. But I noticed he wasn't talking to me the way he used to. No teasing, no soft touches, no checking if I was okay. It was like I wasn't even there. Every time I tried to say something, it fell flat. Either ignored or brushed aside. The city lights started fading behind us. Buildings turned into empty roads. Shops disappeared. The air felt different. He kept driving without saying where we were going. I checked my phone out of habit. The signal was already getting weaker. I leaned closer to him and asked again where we were headed. This time, he didn't even look at me. Just said, "Relax." That was it. No explanation. No reassurance. One of the boys in the back laughed quietly. I couldn't tell if it was about something on his phone or something else entirely. I didn't turn around to check. I didn't want to. The road got narrower. Trees started appearing on both sides. The kind that block out the sky and make everything feel darker than it actually is. The headlights were the only clear thing ahead of us. Everything else was shadows. That's when the feeling hit me properly. Not just discomfort. Not just doubt. Fear. I tried to convince myself I was overreacting. That maybe it really was just a late-night drive. That maybe I was making things bigger than they were. But deep down, something didn't sit right. I looked at him again. Really looked this time. His face was blank. No emotion. No sign of the person I thought I knew. It was like sitting next to a stranger wearing his face. The car finally slowed down. No houses. No streetlights. Just trees and silence. He parked without saying a word. for a moment, no one moved. The engine turned off, and everything went quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that makes your heartbeat sound louder than it should. That I swallowed and looked around, trying to understand why we were there. I wanted to ask again, but the words felt stuck in my throat. One of the boys opened the door and stepped out. The other followed, then he looked at me, not with warmth. Not with reassurance, just a look that made everything inside me drop. That's when I realized I shouldn't have come. The air felt different the moment I stepped out of the car. It wasn't just colder, it was heavier, like something was pressing down on my chest. The kind of silence that doesn't feel natural. No distant traffic, no voices, not even wind moving through the trees. Just stillness. That I stayed close to the door, not fully stepping away, like some part of me already wanted to retreat. The ground beneath my feet was uneven, dry leaves cracking softly with every shift of my weight. It sounded louder than it should have, like every small movement was being noticed. They didn't say anything at first. The two boys stood a few steps away, looking around, then at me, then at each other. My eyes kept going back to him, waiting for him to explain, to smile, to say something that would make this make sense. He didn't. I forced a small laugh, trying to break whatever this was. I asked what we were doing here. No one answered. One of the boys smirked slightly, the other looked away. He just leaned against the car like this was normal. That's when the discomfort started turning into something sharper. I took a step closer to him and lowered my voice, asking again. This time, there was no softness in my tone. Just confusion mixed with something I didn't want to admit yet. He sighed like I was being annoying, like I was ruining whatever plan he had in mind. Then he said, "Why are you acting like this?" Acting like what? The question stayed in my head, but I didn't say it out loud. I didn't want to escalate anything. Not here. Not like this. I glanced around, trying to get a sense of direction, of distance, of anything familiar. There was nothing. Just trees stretching endlessly, shadows blending into each other. Even the path we came from didn't look clear anymore. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. No signal. Not even a single bar. My chest tightened a little more. I tried to stay calm, telling myself it was normal in places like this. But it didn't help. One of the boys moved slightly closer. Not aggressively, not fast, just enough to make me aware of how close he actually was. I shifted my position instinctively, putting a bit more space between us. He noticed. I could tell by the way his lips curved for a second. I turned back to him, searching his face for something familiar. Anything. But there was nothing there. No concern. No recognition of how uncomfortable I was. It was like my feelings didn't exist anymore. I asked if we could go back. Simple. Direct. No attitude. Just a request. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at the other two like they were sharing some silent understanding. That moment, right there, made my stomach drop. This wasn't random. This wasn't just a drive. Something about this was planned. I felt it before I fully understood it. I tried to laugh it off again, weaker this time, saying it wasn't funny anymore. Still nothing. The silence stretched longer, thicker. The kind that fills your ears until you can't think straight. One of them kicked a small rock across the ground. The sound echoed in a way that made everything feel even more isolated. I realized then how far we actually were from anything. I wrapped my arms around myself without thinking, trying to steady my breathing. I didn't want them to see me panic. I didn't want to give them that I kept telling myself there had to be a reason. Maybe a surprise gone wrong. Maybe a misunderstanding. Maybe I was still overthinking, but then I noticed something else. He wasn't looking at me at all, not once, not even by accident. Every time I shifted, every time I spoke, every time I tried to catch his attention, nothing. It was like I wasn't even there. Like I had already been removed from whatever this situation was. That hurt more than the fear for a second, because it meant this wasn't just strange behavior. It was intentional distance. I took a slow step back, then another, creating space without making it obvious. My mind started racing, trying to piece things together, trying to figure out what I had missed. All the times he dismissed my concerns. All the times I ignored the feeling that something wasn't right, they weren't separate moments, they were warnings that I just didn't listen. That I looked toward the car, calculating how fast I could get inside if I needed to. But the way they were standing, the way they were positioned, it didn't feel like an easy option. Not anymore. One of them spoke finally, his voice low, casual, like this was nothing serious. But the words didn't match the tone. I couldn't fully process them at first, not because I didn't hear them, but because my mind didn't want to accept what they meant. That I turned to him immediately after, waiting for him to correct it, to say it was a joke, to shut it down. That he didn't. That silence said more than anything else could have done. My heart started beating harder, louder, like it was trying to push me into action before I was ready. Every instinct in me was screaming now. Not whispering. Not hinting. Screaming, this wasn't safe, this wasn't okay, and whatever was about to happen next. I wasn't prepared for it. That I took another step back, slower this time, my eyes moving between all three of them. Watching. Measuring. Trying to stay one step ahead even though I didn't fully understand the game yet. Then one of them said something clearer, something direct, and in that moment, everything inside me went still, because whatever doubt I had left was gone. The words didn't come out harsh or loud. That's what made them worse. Calm. Certain. Like something already decided long before I got there. That he said it like I was an object. Not a person. Not someone standing right in front of them trying to understand what was happening. Just something being discussed. For a second, I didn't react. My mind refused to catch up. It tried to twist what I heard into something else, something safer. But there was no other meaning. No misunderstanding to hide behind. That I turned to him immediately. That I didn't even realize I had taken a step toward him until I was close enough to see every detail of his face. I was waiting for something, anything. A reaction. A denial. Even anger would have been better than what I got. Nothing. That he didn't look surprised. He didn't look uncomfortable. He didn't even look guilty. That he just stood there, like this was expected. That I asked him quietly if what they were saying was true. My voice didn't sound like mine. It felt distant, like I was hearing someone else speak. He didn't answer right away. He glanced at the other two, then back at me, and that hesitation told me everything before he even opened his mouth. When he finally spoke, it wasn't to deny it. That it was to justify it. Short sentences. Cold. Detached. Like he had already convinced himself this was acceptable. Like whatever we had meant nothing compared to whatever this was. That I felt something break in that moment. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a clean, silent break somewhere deep inside me. That I searched his face again, hoping I missed something. A flicker of regret. A sign that he was being forced into this. But the more I looked, the clearer it became. This wasn't pressure, this was choice. The memory started hitting all at once. Every late reply. Every time he made me feel like I was overreacting. Every moment I questioned him and then questioned myself instead. It all lined up too perfectly. This didn't start tonight. Tonight was just where it ended. One of the boys laughed under his breath, like my confusion was entertaining. The sound snapped something inside me. Not fear. Not yet. Something sharper, clarity. That I stepped back slowly, creating distance again, but this time it wasn't hesitation. It was calculation. My eyes moved between them, noticing things I hadn't before. Where they were standing. How far the car was. The uneven ground. The direction of the road we came from. I asked him one more time, but this time it wasn't a question. It was a chance. A final opening for him to step out of whatever this was. He didn't take it. He looked away. That was it. No anger. No shouting. No desperate pleading. Just a quiet shift inside me that changed everything. I stopped expecting anything from him. The fear was still there, sitting heavy in my chest, but it wasn't controlling me anymore. It was fueling something else. Awareness. Focused. I realized something important in that moment. As long as I kept seeing him as someone I loved, would hesitate. I would wait. I would hope, and hope was dangerous here. So I let it go, completely. I looked at him one last time, not searching for answers anymore, but accepting what was right in front of me. He wasn't on my side. He hadn't been for a while. Whatever this situation was, I was in it alone. The shift was instant. My breathing steadied. My thoughts stopped racing and started aligning. Every small detail around me became clearer. The distance between each of them. The slight gap behind the one closest to me. The direction of the road, barely visible through the trees. They were still talking, but I wasn't really listening anymore. Their words didn't matter now. Only their movements did. One of them stepped closer again, testing the space between us. I didn't step back this time. I held my ground just long enough to make him think I was still frozen, still processing, still trapped in the shock of it all, but inside, I was already moving, already planning. I shifted my weight slightly, careful not to draw attention. My eyes flicked toward the car for a second, then away. Too obvious. That wasn't the way, the road, that was the only real option. Open space. Direction. Distance. I waited, just a few more seconds. One of them turned his head briefly, distracted by something the other said. It was small. Almost nothing, but it was enough. My heart started pounding again, but this time it wasn't panic. It was timing. I knew I wouldn't get another chance like that. I didn't think about what would happen if I failed. I didn't think about how far I'd have to run or whether I'd even make it out. I just knew staying wasn't an option, not anymore. I took one slow breath, steadying everything inside me, locking in the decision before doubt could creep back in. Then I moved fast. Direct. No hesitation. Behind me, I heard the shift, the sudden realization, the change in energy, but I didn't turn around to confirm it. I didn't need to, because in that moment, one thing was clear in a way it had never been before. I wasn't trying to understand them anymore. I was trying to survive. The ground hit harder than I expected, uneven and loose beneath my feet as I pushed forward. I didn't look back. Not once. I could hear movement behind me, sharp, sudden, real, but I forced it out of my mind. Looking back slows you down. Thinking slows you down. And right now, I couldn't afford either. Branches scraped against my arms as I ran, the darkness swallowing everything except the narrow path ahead. My breathing turned heavy almost instantly, but I kept going, pushing past the burn in my chest, past the fear trying to climb back up my throat. I didn't know exactly where I was going. I just knew the road had to be somewhere ahead. I remembered the direction of the headlights before the car stopped, the slight curve we took before entering deeper into the trees. That memory was all I had, and I held onto it like it was the only thing keeping me moving straight. Behind me, the sounds got louder for a moment, footsteps, voices, but they weren't organized. Not focused. That gave me a small advantage. They weren't expecting me to react this fast. They thought I'd freeze longer. They thought I'd hesitate. They were wrong. I pushed harder, ignoring the way my legs started to weaken. Every step felt heavier than the last, but stopping wasn't an option. Slowing down wasn't an option. I kept telling myself that over and over, like a command. Don't stop. The trees began to thin slightly, just enough for a faint difference in the darkness ahead. It wasn't light, not really, but it was something. Open space. Less resistance. My heart started pounding even harder, but this time there was something else mixed into it, hope that I didn't let it distract me. Hope can make you careless. I stayed focused, watching the ground, adjusting my steps, making sure I didn't trip or lose balance. One mistake here could cost everything. The sounds behind me started fading. Either they slowed down, or I had created enough distance. I didn't try to figure out which one it was. I just kept running. My foot slipped once on loose dirt, and I dropped to one knee, pain shooting up instantly. I didn't react. I didn't give it attention. I pushed myself back up before the impact fully registered and kept moving. The air shifted again, less dense, less suffocating, and then I saw it. A faint line cutting through the darkness ahead. The road. It wasn't lit. It wasn't safe yet. But it was something solid, something real, something that could lead somewhere other than where I had just been. I reached it and didn't stop. I stepped onto the rough surface and kept moving forward, putting as much distance between myself and that place as I could. My body wanted to collapse. My lungs felt like they were tearing apart. But I kept walking, fast, unsteady, but moving. After a few seconds that felt like minutes, I finally slowed down. I turned my head slightly, just enough to check behind me. Nothing. No movement. No figures. Just darkness swallowing the path I came from. That's when everything hit at once. My legs gave out, and I dropped to the ground, my hands shaking so badly I couldn't even steady myself. My breathing broke apart, uneven, sharp, uncontrollable. I wasn't running anymore, but my body didn't know that yet. I pulled my arms in close, trying to hold myself together, but the shaking didn't stop. It wasn't just fear. It was everything. Shock. Realization. The weight of what almost happened pressing down all at once. I kept replaying it in my head. The silence. The way he looked at me. The way he didn't look at me. The words. The understanding that came too late. That it wasn't sudden. That it wasn't unpredictable. That I saw pieces of it before tonight. I felt it in the way he changed, in the way he made me question myself instead of him. I ignored it. I explained it away. I chose comfort over truth, and that almost cost me everything. I sat there for a long time, not moving, just breathing, letting my body slowly come back under my control. The night felt different now. Still quiet, still dark, but no longer suffocating, just empty. I reached for my phone again with unsteady hands. Still no signal. But this time, it didn't scare me the same way. I wasn't trapped anymore. I was out. I just needed to keep going. When I finally stood up, my legs protested, but they held. I started walking down the road, each step slower but steadier than before. I didn't know how far the nearest help was. I didn't know how long it would take, but I knew one thing clearly. I wasn't going back, not to that place. Not to him. Not to the version of myself that kept ignoring what she felt just to hold on to something that was already gone. He didn't break me. He revealed something I refused to see, and that truth stayed with me longer than the fear did. If something feels wrong, it usually is. Not because of paranoia. Not because of overthinking. But because some part of you notices what you're trying to ignore. I ignored it, and I almost didn't make it back. So if you ever feel that same quiet warning inside you, don't silence it. That it might be the only thing trying to protect you.